distant arcade lights, packed Man, farther, we're playing all night. Sixes in the background, neon in the air. 80s vibes, man, we didn't care. VHS tapes, staying up too late. Saturday cartoons, can't wait to escape. Dial-ups humming, we're hacking the code. Back when everything was in upload mode. Atari, Commodore, pixels on screen. Living in the future was more than a dream. It's time to kick it old school, turn the clocks back, break the rules. When the pixels pop and the world was cool, we're taking it back, that's how we roll, we roll. It's time to kick it old school, where the beats are fresh, the tech was gold. From arcades, TV shows that ruled. You know we're kicking it old school. MTV playing our favorite jams. Moonwalking with MJ, Neon Slam. Ghostbusters gear, we're ready to go. Chasing slasher scenes, fears in tow. Back to the future, hop in the DeLorean. Knight Rider cruising, man, there's no ignoring them. Battlestar Galactica, what a ride. Looney Tunes, antics, pure joy inside. Blockbusters ruled, we lined up for days. Video games booted up in their pixelated maze. Movie marathons and popcorn nights, we ruled the screen, living in the lights. It's time to kick it old school, turn the clocks back, break the rules. When the pixels pop and the world was cool, we're taking it back, that's how we roll, we roll. It's time to kick it old school, where the beats are fresh, the tech was gold. From arcades to TV shows that ruled, you know we're kicking it old school. Grab your joystick, the game's about to start. A high-score world, now that's an art. We're cruising on hoverboards, living our dream. Old school forever, we're igniting the scene. It's time to kick it old school, turn the clocks back, break the rules. When the pixels pop and the world was cool, we're taking it back, that's how we roll, we roll. It's time to kick it old school, where the beats are fresh, the tech was gold. From arcades to TV shows that ruled, you know we're kicking it old school.
Today's episode is brought to you by PTZ Optics. Disability Upgrade. New Wave Toys and their Replicate Amusements products. GG Retrobox. Get 3 to 5 games from your favorite series, consoles, and game genres delivered to your doorstep every month with GG Retrobox, the ultimate retro gaming subscription box for video game enthusiasts. Use code GRS15 at checkout to get 15% off your first box. And
Boom shakalaka! Hey everybody, it's Tim Kitzer here, the voice of some of your favorite video games like NBA Jam and NFL Blitz. And I'm here to talk to you about Old School Gamer Magazine. It's the magazine for retro gaming, and it's exploding. Kaboom! Print issues come out every other month, and if you want to go green, digital options are available. Visit oldschoolgamer.com and subscribe now. That's oldschoolgamer.com. Boom shakalaka! Kaboom!
Well, we are here. It is Friday once again. We're here on Kickin' Old School with retro future guy Kevin. As a special guest today. Kevin, let's see if they can hear you today. Hopefully we can hear Kevin.
Yep. Sorry.
There we go. Wasn't me this time. I'm innocent. So first of all, welcome everyone to Friday once again. And it is Memorial Day weekend. So just make sure you always take a moment to thank a veteran, thank someone who, served in the military or serves the public. It is a 3-day weekend for a lot of us here in the States, but just remember why we have this 3-day weekend. A lot of people lay down their lives. A lot of people have sacrificed everything to give us the freedoms we have today and be here right now, enjoying a nice Friday night here on Kicking It Old School. So real quick, Kevin, before we get started, I got to run through the chat here and butcher everyone's names because, that's what I do.
Okay.
So let's go over here and get this thing out of my screen. So let's see what we got here today. We have Jeff is here. Green Sammy is here. JJ is here as well. JLS Gaming is here. Welcome, buddy. We have Harley K? I really need to get glasses, Kevin. I don't know about you. I know you got glasses on. I got to get glasses. Rich is here. Goofyfoot. Hey, man, always good to see you. Thanks for joining. Mitchell B is here as well. Rotondo, who I always screw up his name. I'm going to keep doing that to the end of time. Chris Williams is here. Hobby Hands is here. Bill's Retro Gaming Show coverage. What's on my center screen right now, in fact, that will be launching the Build-A-Cade FU someday next month, but it's finally happening. J-Rod is here. We have Chris HC. Good evening, all. We have a super chat already. Look at this. Super chat from Kevin Clausen. Did I miss that? Let's go back up here. Got to pull up Kevin Clausen's a $2 super chat. Heck yeah! The FU is coming. Yes, it is. We will be having some FU, next month. Thanks. We also have, let's see, Shotgun Sean is here. Who else? Stephen M is here. I think we got pretty much everyone here, I think, so far. Upkiss is here. Hey, man. Good to see you. My God. I can't read this. Sidious, hopefully I got that right, is here. I need someone to read these names for me. I'll get an AI to read all the people in the chat. Hollywood Polo is here. James hates everything. As a matter of fact, let me tell you something. Last night, if you guys didn't catch James Hate Everything, first of all, I suggest you go and watch and subscribe to James Hates Everything. But, I didn't even realize that they had done this. So apparently, this company went out there and took all of us YouTubers and made product. I went into Target and I actually got myself a Glenn's Retro Show doll here. That is really cool. I thought James was full of shit. I thought James made this up. I thought this was fake. But I went in and here it is. It only cost me $30. So James, man, thanks for the heads up on this one. I didn't get the other guys yet because I'm an arrogant son of a bitch. I got just myself. But very cool, James. Cool. And apparently we have a bunch of super chats coming through now. So we have Steps Gaming here. Got to go back. Oh my God, that thing's blowing up. So we have a super chat from Steps Gaming. Happy birthday, Steps Gaming. Her birthday just passed. Unfortunately, she's not a Taurus. She's a Gemini. It's a shame because the Taurus is obviously where it's at. But, Gemini is not too bad, except my brother's a Gemini. And, it's like oil and water there. Steps, thank you for the $2 super chat. And, of course, JLS Gaming. Congrats to Cole. Great job. Yes, Cole graduated a year early from college. He went to college in his junior year of high school. He went to college and he graduated. And now we can spend a lot of time at home driving me nuts. So, JLS, thanks for the super chat. Let's see what else we got going over here. I think we got everyone here. Patrick Murphy is here. Brooklyn Menace. Got to always get Brooklyn Menace in there. He's here everywhere. See, his is already in clearance at Ollie's. Mine's not yet. Mine's not in clearance yet, but I'm still impressed that they actually put this stuff out already. It's a pretty quality product. You thought we would have made it, but no. Okay, it's all good. I'm sorry about yours being in Ollie's already, but I know you spent a lot of time there, Brooklyn Menace, finding a lot of good things. All right, so we are finally here. Yep, right there. Boom. May 7th. Taurus are number one. We're the best out there. We got the biggest hearts. We're the kindest, but don't tick us off and get the horns. Arcade 1-Up is now Arcade Done-Up. Realize that one. But okay, we've gone through the chat here, and I want to officially welcome Keith. He's from the channel Retro Future Guy, and he actually reached out to me, about a month ago?
No, just a couple of weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago. I'm old. I lose track of time.
Yeah, because we were going to do this last week, and it was Cole's graduation, so
he ruined it. Thanks, Cole.
You didn't have that one, so yeah, it was just 2 weeks ago, I think.
And what he's been doing is it's actually pretty cool. When I was a kid, when I was younger, like 5 minutes ago, so I'm still a big baby. I still actually have all my Legos to this very day. But I used to make all these kind of things out of Legos. I would take electric motors, I'd build, fans out of them. I built a bank with a buzzer and a light and some switches. So, and in fact, I couldn't find it in time. If you remember those old Coleco, Donkey Kong, Froggers, I had a motherboard that I got, and I built a really horrible version of a Coleco tabletop out of Lego to put the motherboard in. It's horrible because I already got the old Legos with just blocks and a couple of bendy parts. But he sent out to me, he says, Glenn, I want to show you something. I got your Tron flight stick and I got your spinner, and it's sitting right next to him right now. He's got a pinball made out of Legos, people. So, Keith, tell us a little bit about your Lego fascination and gaming.
Yeah. Thanks. To start with, sorry, Kevin, not Keith. It's okay. Keith? I get that all the time.
That's the blue juice talking.
Yeah. No worries. But yeah, Glenn, thank you so much for having me here. It's such a it's a little dream come true. I've got such an incredible respect for everything that you and Thunderstick Studios are doing, and I have so much of your equipment, not just on this table, but in my actual game room. So thanks for having me here. So Retro Future Guy is a channel that I started up on YouTube just I think like a month ago, and I've been slowly rolling out these Lego builds just as a first thing. It's not all that Retro Future Guy is going to do. In fact, it's going to be a lot of very, very honest, in fact, possibly scathing reviews of things as they come out. I'm looking forward to doing the Nintendo Switch 2. I'm about to do one on the Asus Z13 2-in-1 tablet. So there's a lot of cool stuff I'm doing, but I started out with just this idea in my head about I'm not much of a woodworker. But back in the day, I used to use Legos and then stopped doing it for, 20 plus years. But I loved it. And I spent so much time doing it as a kid back in the day when it was all just loose sets. I don't think that they came with a specific thing in mind.
Not back in the day.
This is the one thing that you can build with this.
Not back in the day.
I used to love the creativity of that. And so, so I got it in my head that, I've seen people do, kind of fake arcade systems out of Lego, but it was always just, it was on top of wood, and it really was just printed to look like it was Lego, but it wasn't, or just the undercarriage of it was. And so I just got it in my head that, there's cheaper ways. There's, certainly more economical ways to do a fight stick or a pinball controller. But I wanted all of those things in one thing. And because I'm not a woodworker, I was like, let me try and see what I can do out of Lego. And so I came up with this guy, which is, I think the third in a series. I started out with one. The very first thing I did was an all button controller. And so, it was a fighting controller. I tend to use these ones that have multiple joysticks and a spinner and a trackball and an analog stick, and then, pinball buttons around the sides. And, all the buttons you could ever want and more, all over the place. And in fact, you can't see on the back of it, it's also got your 2-in-1. So I can switch this guy to 4-way for
nice.
the old school Donkey Kong and Ms. Pac-Man and all those kind of things. And then back to 8-way. So just with the press of a button, it's a real game changer. So, I started with the all button one, and then I moved on to this. And the reason that was the second one, even though it was the one I was most excited about at the time, was that I knew that you were going to have to integrate a thin 1/8-inch wooden backboard, at least in the way that I was designing this. I know it's a mess inside of there. I'm not sure whether you can even see that, but yeah.
Again, it looks fine to me because, again, I am not someone who really cleans up the wires. It goes in, you don't see it, and I close it.
Okay, all right, yeah. I think probably some people, their eye starts to twitch when they see stuff like that. But I felt like when I was building vertically like this, which felt like it was the right way, where the faceplate, the bricks go up, it felt like doing it this way was the best way to get as close as you could around the holes. It didn't really work well when you tried to use like angled pieces, but this way was able to get it almost invisible with the openings around those. And so it's very tight in there. But as you can imagine, side to side movement on a joystick works just fine. But at the point that you go vertically, you really start to just wrench the pieces apart. And so I was like, shoot, the only options I could think of, and I welcome anybody in the chat to correct me on this, because I'd love an alternate way to do this. But I was like, you're either going to glue all those pieces together,
Right.
or you're going to incorporate a backboard, just a wooden piece that has holes for each of the things cut out, and then work the Legos around that. Sometimes you go too thick, two studs thick. Sometimes you got to go like one to get the trackball as close to the
Surface.
top of it.
Yeah.
This is this flight stick, this analog flight stick, is very shallow. So again, you've got to push it up toward the top. So anyway, long-winded way of saying, this was the big daddy that I was really excited about, and the one that
how much in parts and Lego parts was that?
So I think it was all right. So I tried it a couple different ways. I started buying a bunch of cheapy stuff on Amazon in addition to actual Lego parts. I was like, it'd be really cool if I could figure out a less expensive way than just buying part by part off Lego. And I think Bricklink allows you to put in orders through there. I actually haven't used it, but it sort of seems like that's maybe the smartest way to go. So I tried getting parts off of Amazon and found that all but one of the makers of the like Lego lookalikes were just kind of garbage.
Like there were two, like a brittle, cheap plastic.
They
like the
either
arcade
were
one-up of plastic versus a GRS version of plastic.
They were too loose, or they were or too brittle, just moved too much or too little, or didn't fit together very well, or you'd get a bunch of them that were warped, and none of them really have a good sheen on them. Like as you see light hitting it,
It looks beautiful. Looking at it here,
this guy's all official now. So to answer your question, Glenn, sorry, I think it's probably about 200.
Really? That's what gets me about Legos.
$25.
That's what gets me about Legos. I mean, they're just little plastic bricks, but they're not cheap.
They are not cheap. But and it's funny because my folks, back in the day, back in the 80s, I had a massive, massive bag that was probably, 2/3 the size I was. It probably would be worth $10,000 now. And I think I gave it away to somebody when I went off to school or something like that. So, yeah. Oh, well, somebody else got to enjoy it, but I kind of wish I had $10,000 worth of Legos to work with. Because right now I find myself building things and then being like, well, shoot, now I really want to keep this, but I've got to tear it apart to have the parts to make something else.
Now, there's something else I'm looking at. You have a pinball machine I see behind you as well. Tell us a little bit about that bad boy.
Yeah, so that is the brand new one that I haven't even unveiled on the channel yet. I decided that I would talk about it for the first time and show it off for the first time when you and I got on this live stream. But I don't know that it's going to be all that easy to see the screen of until I turn these lights off, and I probably will for an example. But yeah, what I had in my head was to create a 2-screen. A lot of pinball machines have like 3 or even 4 screens. I was like, I just need to go with 2. I need a play field and I need a back glass. And so I started thinking about different ways to do that. And you've got one that, you could have 2 cheapy screens, then you've got a small PC or hell, a large PC that you're plugging
Right.
into it to make everything work. But I really wanted to go pretty self-contained, and so I was like, all right, that means that either the back glass right here, in the back box that's sitting here, was going to actually be the brains of the thing through something like Lenovo Legion Go, or I think I'm going to do a version of it that has the Steam Deck, since everybody's got that. Yeah, so that would be running the brains of everything, and then you just need to get a 14 or 15-inch portable monitor from Amazon for $50 or $100, and really, again, you're talking about probably $250 worth of Legos. And then, yes, you've got all the arcade parts. You've got, the board inside it that everything is plugged into. And I can, take the screen out after I've given the example just to show the inside of this. But essentially, it's just got enough wiring to accommodate all the buttons that are going around this.
Have you thought about putting legs on it?
No, not really.
Gotta keep it
I
on the
sort
table?
of wanted a desktop one. And I just figured that was going to add to the instability of it. So I didn't really want to do that. I mean, I probably could, but one of the things that was important for me to have in this particular one is I put in one of the, what are they called? Like the KL52Z boards. It's essentially the Virtua Pin board that's in there that has an accelerometer in it.
Yep,
So
yep.
if I start Attack from Mars, you'll see that you can slap the sides of this thing without it coming apart, and you're actually able to nudge the ball back and forth.
That's the way to do it.
Bump it vertically, bump it side to side. So it has the buttons to be able to do like MagnaSave games or a vertical nudge on the front of here. But but ultimately, yeah, I wanted to put an accelerometer in there so that I could do it up properly. So,
and it's a disappointment when a lot of people have these virtual machines and they don't have that. It's a little bit of an expense, yes, but if you're really trying to experience the pinball, you have to nudge it. You cannot not going to think about pressing buttons to nudge it. You got to be able to hit it. So that's kind of cool that you did that.
Yeah, and it's it really holds together. I mean, yes, you can break it apart because it's Legos, but like you slap it around and it can withstand it the way it's constructed. Really,
now, versus me saying something politically incorrect about the slapping. Really quick, we got a super chat here from Jason, a $10 super chat, wishing everyone, well, myself, a happy Memorial Day, but all of you out there, again, just a quick reminder that this weekend is based on people who have served, people who have protected, people who have lost their lives in giving the freedoms that we enjoy today. Please don't forget that. Enjoy yourselves, of course. Have a barbecue, of course. But do take a moment to just give respect to people who gave their all for us to be here today. And Jason, I'm going to give you a nice little blue super chat. It's funny, Cole tonight, I was going to get the video and show you guys, but I didn't get it ready in time. He had Blue doing sit-ups or push-ups, which I thought was hysterical, seeing my dog do that. But in any case, so those things are really good. So obviously would have been cheaper to do it, but you are like me. You're like me. It's why I bought a 3D printer, because I am not good with wood. In shop, they passed me just to get me the hell out of class. Because I just am not that good in woodworking. But again, what you did here with the white, the black, the way you did it, they just look so visually appealing, and they work.
Thanks, Lynn. Yeah, it's got a nostalgia factor to it for sure. There are definitely less expensive ways to do particularly fight sticks. I mean, there's a billion of them out there, but I really, really wanted to to have everything in one. And you don't see a lot of fight sticks that have the pinball buttons that you need to be able to kind of do that stuff. And the fact is, like, if you want a good pinball machine, you're looking at, I mean, people in the comments can tell me that there's less expensive options, and there are. But if you want a really good full featured thing, you're looking at $6,000 to $10,000. And the fact is,
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, and it's amazing what you can get out of that. It's a full, arcade experience. But I think that this thing right now, actually, I guess I started to say that you could either have the brains of this thing in the back box and you run it off like a handheld PC, like a Lenovo Legion Go, or eventually a Steam Deck. I'll have that hopefully in the next week or two. But again, I'm gonna have to do a little bit of tearing down to build up. Or this particular one just has a cheap 10-inch screen in the back, and then it's using an old Asus X16, which is a convertible 2-in-1 laptop, or something like the new Asus Z13. And those are not inexpensive machines. Those
Are you using the
2-in-1s that have
screen from
dedicated.
that? Are you using the screen from the 2-1, or using two separate screens, and then 2-1 is just powering those
No,
two
in
separate
this
screens?
particular one, the 2-in-1 is the screen. So again, all of that is to try and minimize the number of parts that exist outside this to have to drive it. So yeah, I've got it running off of that right now, and it generates a lot of heat. So it's pushed over slightly to the side to give it some venting.
This is what Michael B would just join. Michael, I got mine at the store. Get yours before they're gone. Awesome. Thanks to James Hates Everything. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I think ultimately this next one that I end up posting the instructions and the parts list for is going to be the Steam Deck plus another screen, and that is going to be a pretty inexpensive way to do things. Like you could go on like Game Room Solutions or something and buy a box, that you put these things in. And I've done that before, and I've tried a number of different small machines, but I don't love them. They don't look like the real deal in the arcade, which I think I approximated that fairly well with this. Incidentally, I just wanted to say to everybody that's not familiar with Retro Future Guy and that channel, is that any of these things that I'm building, it's just for fun, and I'm posting the instructions, the step-by-step guides on Bricklink, and the 3D renderings of all these things and the parts list, so you can do whatever you want with them. I would love to see what people do to improve upon what I've done here, because I'd love to replicate that and build it myself. But right now, I think this is going to be my daily driver. But I don't want to take this thing apart either, because I'm really happy with the.
It's a shame. I mean, the pinball looks amazing too. I mean, the pinball really does look amazing. It's a shame you got to take the one apart, but yeah, that's a lot of dough just to spend again to make another design. Maybe you should reach out to Lego and say, listen, I got this YouTube channel, and I make these Lego things. You never know. They may come up with a big truck and just like dump the whole backyard full of Legos. You never know.
You know what? It couldn't hurt, Glenn. The fact is, I think that they like it when you stay within the ecosystem of Lego. I think that, they came up with the Bricklink Studio. I mean, I'm assuming that they came up with that to drive sales of their stuff. So I don't think, I couldn't even post to the Lego Reddit because it incorporates real arcade hardware, your real arcade hardware. And so I think that disqualifies you. They want it all to be Legos. And people have done some amazing things with functional stuff, but virtual pinball is just something that I got into right when lockdown started. And I didn't care about it at all before that. I was definitely an arcade geek. I owned every console, and I was always at the arcades when I was growing up, but I just didn't care that much about pinball. And I think it was the sort of 90s pinball games. It was Terminator 2, and it was Attack from Mars, and things like that I was like, this stuff is so cool, and very, at that point, very arcade game-like. It sort of went from being like all the, bells and whistles that it had been since I don't know what, the 50s.
Yep.
And then I really feel like there was kind of a renaissance in the 90s. And then when there was the ability to do things virtually with creating something with 2 or 3 screens, or better still, when you slap on a VR headset and you plug into something like this, and you're able to play with the tactile controls, and you're able to put in force feedback so that you can feel the ball rolling and stuff like that. It's really a game changer.
It is, and
It's a lot
even
of fun.
like I said, we talk about the real one costs like between $6,000 and $10,000. If you did spend that kind of money, you have hundreds and hundreds of different pinballs to play on it. Now I was talking to a couple of my buddies, and they bought a Godzilla, and they bought this one and that one, and they love it, but it's still one pinball. It's mechanical, and
Right.
they do tend to break. They do tend
Yeah.
to break.
Yeah.
And it's usually a lot easier to fix a V pin than it is to fix a Stern, Godzilla, or Stern whatever, Jurassic Park. Though there's so many
Yeah.
parts of
Yeah.
those things.
Totally. And that's not easy either. Like, troubleshooting that stuff, I think retro gaming and emulation, MAME, and things like that, there's a learning curve for that, for sure. And I guess I did it over a number of years or decades. So I got used to it. But when I got into the virtual pinball thing, I was like, oh my God, this is like next level technical, and it's a lot tougher. But as you say, I see the pinball machines, like the real ones, kind of flipped up, and you see the innards of them. I just wouldn't even know where to start. I don't have that kind of
I
technical
I
know-how.
hear
Mine
you.
goes off a cliff when it comes to wiring things up,
I hear
besides
you with
pushing
the with
buttons.
the with the V pin mostly years ago, 10, 15 years ago when it first came out. Like I had them working, and then something would go wrong. You got frustrated. You got frustrated. But now they're getting a lot better with was it uh, PIM, and it makes it a lot easier to get the ROMs and put the ROMs in the right spot, and put the table in the right spot, and it made it a lot easier. And now, even now, uh, PinMame and stuff like that, they're now making an x86 like all
Yeah.
inclusive executable. So now
Mhm.
you can just have this one executable, and it just works. It
Yeah.
just works, which is huge because I think a lot of people would enjoy VPin more, but again, you can't. They don't want to spend $10,000, $15,000 a real machine. Anywhere between 2,000 and 6,000 or more for a VPin. Uh, if they could just get an old PC, which they still need a fairly robust computer and a graphics card for virtual pinball. It's funny that it does. You figure these arcade games needed more, and these pinballs are ancient, but the ball mechanics, all that stuff, the lighting effects, does take up a lot of GPU and CPU time in these machines. But it's finally getting to the point where it's easier now for just common people to say, oh, I got an old PC and I got a couple screens, and do kind of what you did with the Legos, which I think is cool. But I do think that VPN has a bad rap because of the legacy of how hard it used to be to get them working.
Yeah. I just wanted to say real quickly, I was going to butcher the name if I tried to do it, but I kept on noticing
Oh,
that
I
Harley
do it all the
Cade
time.
kept posting things like the KL25Z as being the board with the accelerometer that's in here. And you're right, Pin One also has a board that does that. I have one in the other room. In fact, I've got the little mini pinball thing that they have, which I think is super cool, and also at a great price. They do a good product at a great price.
We just call him
Um,
Harley K. We'll just call him Harley K.
Harley K. Yep. So thank you for your additions there. You're right. That nudge buttons do suck, but sometimes you got to make do. I think that even though the learning curve is pretty huge when it comes to um, virtual pinball and visual pinball as the software, future pinball as the software, I think you can get a big chunk of the experience from things like Pinball FX3, the Pinball FX without the 3 that just came out, a year or two ago. That's actually the later version of it. That stuff is pretty good. If there's a good way to plug in force feedback so that you actually feel the ball movement, I haven't seen it, but also they came out with a Pinball FX VR for the Quest 2 and 3, and it's bananas. It's super awesome.
I was going to ask you about that. So I only have the Quest, MetaQuest 2,
Yeah,
and the Pinball FX in there. I friggin' love it. They just need to add the ability to invite your friends and play in the same room. But it is amazing. If you guys have not played it, it's worth buying this damn Oculus or MetaQuest 2, whatever they call them, for that, and then more Darth Vader Immortal, those 2 games. But the pinball is really, really well done.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And they just came out with a few packs. So they have like Attack from Mars, which is a personal favorite of mine, and Medieval Madness, and all the sort of, I think it's the first 3 volumes of the Midway packs that they've sold several times before. You bought them for Pinball FX3. Now you're buying it again for FX. Now you're buying it again for the VR version.
And
if you buy it for
kind of talked about that a little bit
Android,
before.
then you're buying it yet again.
We talked about that a little bit before. Is that all these downloads and you're constantly buying and rebuying stuff you already have, just on a different platform, I guess, perhaps. So we were talking about before the show started. We're kind of talking about it because one of my triggers right now is Nintendo and the Switch 2. That's just a trigger for me right now on how they treat the people who've really kept. I mean, regardless, they do make good games. Let's be real. Nintendo does make some really good games. They have some of the biggest IPs out there. That doesn't mean you go and you just stomp and crush creativity and your end users. And the Switch 2, from my understanding right now, is you buy the Switch 2, you buy a game, even if you go and you get a physical cartridge. I got the physical cartridge here, you plug it in, it's just a key. No different than just a key you would put in normally to download it virtually for the software license. But now they're going as far as the hardware itself. So the Switch 2, you have a license, you buy the hardware, you physically have the Switch 2, it's in my hands. No, but you don't really own it. You own the license to use it how they determine you're allowed to use that piece of hardware. It is really not yours. If you modify it, let's say, we're talking about the show, let's say you want to get a new screen or a different Joy-Con that you want to take it out and put a different one in. They detect that. They can brick it, and you can't even sue them. But this always be, I guess, great, up in the weird area. But technically, you can't sue them because you accept the license agreement saying you can't sue them because you agreed to their terms. The hardware that you purchased isn't really yours. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't love it. I think you're exactly right. I think that look, I have a Switch 2 on order because I'm curious to get my hands on it, and I'm curious to frankly give it a very honest review on Retro Future Guy. And frankly, if it doesn't meet the standards, then it's probably going to a friend of mine. But yeah, I don't love.
I'm a friend of yours now.
I'm sorry, say again.
I'm a friend of yours now.
Yeah. It could go your way. So look, I'm excited about it because I think that there's some potential there, but there are a lot of red flags. And one of the things that you mentioned that I really, really hate is the move toward software as a service, and you don't really, and now apparently hardware as a service. You don't really even necessarily own that. I think that Draconian will brick your console if you do something untoward with it or whatever is ridiculous, may or may not stand up in a court of law. That would be.
I think in other countries, their agreement is different. Like in the European Union, they can't do that. They can't. So it's not in their agreement. But what gets me more is, Nintendo, they sell hardware and software, right? We buy it. We have to stand up and say, you know what, Nintendo? Not pre-ordering it. No one buys it. Then Nintendo goes, you know what? Like, look at Xbox, right? When they first came out with the Kinect, they were more expensive than the PS2. Everyone's like, you guys are crazy. We don't want the Kinect. We don't be forced to buy it. They turned around to 180. If people really do feel like we do, and I'm really pissed off about this, that they have a right to basically say that hardware that's in your hands, that you spent money out, wait online, all this stuff, and you have in your hands, they can brick because they don't like what you did with your property because they're saying it's not your property. It's your fault for buying it. Anyone out there who buys it and supports it, you're part of the problem. Nintendo only does what they could do because they can make money. The second Nintendo realizes they can't make money or they're not making money, they will do a 180, guaranteed. That was my PSA. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you might be right, and I hemmed and hawed quite a bit about do I pick this up or not? Do I make the statement or do I? But the fact is, through Retro Future Guy, I'm going to do a brutally honest appraisal of that stuff
Good.
and cover it in a knowledgeable fashion, because I'm going to have the hardware in hand. But I also don't have a problem with sending it back to them, through whoever,
It's funny. I was going through I was reading through the license agreement, right? So the typical thing, you have to accept this license agreement. If you don't, you have the option to return it if possible, if the retailer will accept the return. Well, what if they don't accept the return and you don't accept the license agreement? Now you have a box that's just going to sit there and do nothing? Is Nintendo going to buy it back? No, they're not going to buy it back. Sorry, I Kathleen Kennedy's off my radar right now, so I had a tirade on Nintendo for a little bit. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no. I feel you. And I've got the same misgivings. I don't love the fact that the memory card that goes in it is a kind that nobody has and is 3 times as expensive as every other one that's out there.
You remember when Sony was doing that? When there was micro SD card? Micro SD cards, but Sony had their special cards. You had to buy, if you bought a Sony camera, you had to buy a special Sony card. The technology inside was the same, wire different. You had to spend 3 times the price for a Sony card. I
don't remember. Was that for the Vita or the PSP or?
No, you got it right there. You got it right there. But even their memory cards, you bought it on laptops and notebooks. You had to buy special I think it was VIAO memory cards. They were specific. They were like elongated, very thin, like thumb drives.
Yeah.
But you couldn't use anything else with their stuff.
Yeah.
And their digital cameras and their digital camcorders. You had to buy the special stuff. I avoided it like the plague. I wouldn't do that.
That went back to the whole trying to create the standard that then everybody adopts and pays you licensing fees for, and you win. You got beta instead of VHS. From back in the day.
I knew to get VHS. I wasn't getting no beta. But that's the thing. We're the consumers. So I understand people are excited for new Nintendo games. I understand people are excited for something new. But you also have to be smart overall, because we have the power over these companies. If you don't buy the product, they will come back and reassess and fix it. If everyone just buys it, you're basically greenlighting Nintendo, putting you behind the Stalin wall, if I can say so. They have control. They determine what you can and can't do. And I have a big, huge problem with that from any company.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think even I can't tell you. In fact, even if I could tell you, I would never want to look at how much I've spent on Steam games and the Steam library that I'm like, ooh, someday maybe I'll play that. But I don't think Steam is going anywhere. But again, you've got the license to that.
Yep.
But if Steam disappears, you're not going to be able to play it.
Right, and that's the other word. I have Steam, and I've only got a couple of games. I got Heavy Metal Titans because I'm in the game, so I got that game. But
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, and actually, well, I could keep my mouth shut. I have been drinking. I got to shut up. But yes, I'm in that game. I don't want to say anything else.
Okay.
But that's the one problem. I mean, back in the earlier days, you downloaded the games were downloads, but you had the executable. Well, you downloaded the game. Maybe you had a key or something you had to type in to say it was the manual. You find a spot in the manual to do it, but you still had the game. Now, the way these things work, with Steam, that worries me because to me, gaming, the programs put all this time and their own emotions into these games. It's artwork, and it seems like it's stuff that people are okay with just going away. Like people today, they'll buy the system. Okay, the games are gone. No big deal. I have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm just weird. Maybe I am old. I am a little bit older than you. We talked about it earlier.
Barely.
But it just bothers me that there are games out there that are excellent and they're just going to go away because they don't have a tangible thing. A CD, a cartridge, nothing.
Yeah, same as music did, with going through its many permutations. Were you a music lover in the 80s?
I listened to Pac-Man Fever. Yeah, I listened to Pac-Man Fever. Yeah.
It's very refined taste you have there.
I do. I do know. I have my music collection. Back. I remember when I first got my first Sony, CD player, because we had cassettes and we had LPs, right? But when
Yeah.
I got that first CD, I mean, it was just so amazing. I went nuts. I was buying. I have thousands of CDs. Now they're archaic. They're archaic. Right? No one has them anymore.
But you still gotta love having that physical thing. I mean, I sold a lot of a very, very large collection I have, and I'm back to occasionally buying vinyl or CDs for things, particularly when there's extra tracks or something like that you just gotta have, and you're a completionist like I am. But
Well, I remember
yeah,
when I got my TurboGrafx 16 had and the Sega CD had CD plus graphics. So I
right?
never listened to this group called Little Feat. Never heard of them. Never heard of them.
Mm.
But I bought them, and it's like a jazz. It's like a jazz type music, and it's like really good. So I would never even bother listening to that genre or that group. I only got it because I wanted to see his cool graphics come on when it was playing. But again, that's a physical media thing, and again, maybe I'm just old, but I like the quirky things that some systems had, like CD plus graphics or music CDs or video CDs. Playing on like your Gold Star 3DO with a MPEG pack or CDI.
Yeah,
That is just, I guess I like the quirky systems that maybe never made it for some reason or another. Maybe that's why I'm not an Apple guy. I'm an Android guy. I like being able to have something and make it mine, change it,
yeah,
change the whole thing. I just have a problem with lockdown things, I guess.
yeah.
I have a problem with demand.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
what
like
it
you.
is.
I am very system agnostic. I own iOS devices and I own Android devices, and I love them equally. There's things that I love and hate about them, but I owned everything from the 2600 to the NES, the SNES, the Genesis, the Saturn, the 32X, the 3DO, the Jaguar.
Do you still have them?
No, I don't. In most cases back then, I was like selling one to afford the next one.
next.
And yeah, like the
So
$10,000 bag.
what did you sell for the Jaguar?
Oh God. What did I sell for it?
Yeah, to
Or
buy
what
the
did I get?
Jaguar.
Geez, I can't even remember what that was sandwiched in between. I like to think I didn't buy the links with it, but it's also entirely possible I did. No, I couldn't have done that because the links was just not great. But damn, Tempest 2000 was so good on the Jaguar. I still play that to this.
Do you have Alien versus Predator?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, so
That was a
those
good
are the
one.
two. Those two games alone, honestly, are worth owning a Jaguar. There's a couple other good games on there. They have a very
Totally.
good version of Doom and Castle Wolfenstein. There was a lot of crap on it, though. I mean, there wasn't a lot of games, but the ones that were good, like Alien versus Predator and definitely Tempest 2000. This is Tempest 2000, but it kind of lost something, I guess. Now, did you get a joystick modified with the spinner?
Do you mean for that
Yeah,
specifically?
yeah. You can modify the controller, put a potentiometer in there, and you can play temp. When you put that in, you press down. I think it was star and ampersand and start and select, and it enables analog mode, and you can use a potentiometer to do it. If you don't have it now, you still have your Jaguar. If you go on like eBay, just type in Jaguar Tempest, and you'll see it. Oh, it's gone, huh?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, I wasn't kidding when I said that I had to sell it to get something else. I really don't remember what that was sandwiched in between. Maybe people in the comments know what came out like shortly before and after that.
Would
Those
have been the
brain cells are
PlayStation.
dead,
It was
unfortunately
the
for me.
3DO and the original Saturn and PlayStation. They were next
Yeah,
in line.
yeah. I think what was your all-time favorite system, Glenn?
People ask me that all the time, so it's kind of funny. My first system was a Magnavox Odyssey, and I had a Pong, and of course the
Mm.
2600. Those are my things. But I have this love for, I'm going to say older systems. Not going to go with the Dreamcast. I love the Dreamcast. The Bally Astrocade and the Vectrex. I mean, if I was on an island and I was stranded there, I would love my Bally Astrocade. Keep it off the sand because it overheats and it'll burn up. And
Yeah,
my Vectrex.
really.
Yeah, but really close to ColecoVision. really close to that. And of course, the 2600 was my first love. That's that first girlfriend, the first kiss, the first everything. But
Okay.
those two, like the Vectrex and the Bally Astrocade, I really enjoyed back then. Maybe because I was bored of the 2600. Because again, that was the first thing we all experienced.
Hmm.
And the 2600, you really needed someone there. Most games were kind of two-player games.
Yeah.
At least the good ones were. Where
Yeah.
these other systems where you could do it with one person.
Yeah.
How about yourself? What was your first you had a bunch. What was your first one you actually remember having as a kid?
Well, my first was the 2600 for sure. And I really didn't, I just didn't have access to all of the kind of computer-based, keyboard-based systems back in the day. So it was, I kind of missed that whole boat. And all the consoles I had, had controllers to them, not keyboards. But I started with the 2600 and I wanted something that was going to be arcade perfect. And it just wasn't. Like, I feel like there were Pac-Man games where Pac-Man couldn't turn around. He was always like chomping in the same direction. And I was just like,
There
this
was
is awful.
two versions on Atari Age. A guy, I don't know how he did it, but a 4K version of Pac-Man, an 8K
Oh,
version of Pac-Man.
Dreamcast. Sorry. I was
Oh, it was
reading the
Dreamcast.
comments.
Oh,
Dreamcast.
Dreamcast.
Amazing. Great unit.
The Dreamcast, love the Dreamcast. That's overall, it's a shame. Favorite console, and it died so fast because of piracy. I mean, honestly, it was piracy that really killed it, and not being able to play DVDs. If they put a DVD in the
Mm.
Dreamcast, that would have been the machine. Even today, look at it like
Oh
a
my
PS1,
gosh, totally.
PS2, and the Dreamcast. Dreamcast still holds up today,
Totally. I couldn't agree
26
more.
years
It'd be
later.
interesting to see what everybody, I'm sure you've done this in the past and I've just missed it, but it'd be interesting to see if all of your viewers were to chime in with what their, best system was in their best
Put it in the
retro
chat.
system.
Type in the
I
chat
would
what
be
your favorite
interested.
system was. I think Dreamcast will come up a lot. I mean, we've
Yeah,
had this
Dreamcast
before.
was amazing. For
It
me,
really was.
it was, and I'm glad somebody mentioned that because I played those games, but I don't think of that console. But I think that
Tekken.
that's in my top three. The PS2, the PS3, like I just love so many games on those, but the Dreamcast is probably, yeah.
PlayStation
Top three.
really was for me just to play Resident Evil and Tekken. Those are like
The
two games.
original one.
Yeah, just for that. But the
Mhm.
Dreamcast, man, I just threw disc in and everything I played was just fun. The VMUs were fun. Uh,
The
the controller.
graphics just blew everything away.
I walked into a Babbage's and they had the what's it
Babbage's.
NK
That's
2000, the football NK NFL 2000 and stuff. I was like,
uh-huh.
look, is that real? I mean, that it just looks so good back then. And it was just a tiny little console. That wasn't very
Yeah.
big. It was just a little bigger than the CD. But man, so we have some Dreamcast. We have some Saturn, PS2, PS3, Commodore 64, Sega, of course 2600. People say I love them all, but you can't blame on that.
Yeah.
GameCube was good too. Again, another small console, but great graphics on that GameCube.
Yeah. With the weirdest design ever. I mean, that lunchbox looking design was so bizarre.
They did that because of I truly believe because of Apple, because Apple had that little cube machine,
That's what
and
they were
it
going
was, and
for.
it looked very childish. I think that's what really hurt it because it did look so childish. But when you played it, the graphics again, the Star Wars game was Star Wars Rogue One, I think it was called,
Uh-huh.
one of the launch titles,
Yeah.
blew me away. I'm like, this little tiny little machine, this little tiny little disc, great graphics. I enjoyed it. What else over here too? Nintendo 64. Actually, I bought that. Only really played Mario 64 and Empire, Star Wars, something of the Empire. It's one of the launch titles. Shadows of the Empire. That's about it. So you had the 2600. That was your first one. But what was was Dreamcast your all-time favorite, or you had something else that you really liked better?
No, I think that the PS2, PS3, and Dreamcast were probably my favorite. I think that I was utterly hooked after the SNES because I thought that that's where you really, like, the NES was awesome. The SNES, I think, was where you started to get things that seemed to parallel what was in the arcade. I mean, just in terms of the graphics.
Yes.
And I was I was a little hung up on the fidelity. It wasn't just it played amazing, but it also had to look the part. And I think that era, as few arcade ports as there were, I felt like there was parity there, and so I really enjoyed it.
It's funny. I think, like when the original systems came out, like the 2600 and things like that, it was the graphics weren't there. It was gameplay. It was eye-hand coordination. It was beating a friend. That's what that was about. And then as it got more towards like, the Dreamcast and those type of systems, there were a lot of flashy games, like visually stunning games. The gameplay sometimes wasn't always there. But again, I still think the Dreamcast, pretty much every game was a very playable, well done game. And I don't know if I can really say that for other systems. Like almost anything you popped in was enjoyable.
I was going to say Sega CD, but I didn't want to.
That was such a disappointment, That was such a disappointment because that Sega CD, people don't even realize it. It wasn't like the Jaguar CD where it was just a CD-ROM and that was it. They had a second Motorola CPU at 12 megahertz. They had a special chip for scaling and zooming. They had additional RAM in there. They had another sound chip. There was a lot of hardware in there, and they do full motion video games. That's what they did.
Yeah. Sewer Rat or Sewer
Shark.
Sewer
Shark. And then they have the 32X. And again, I admit, I had the Model 1 Genesis. I had the Model 1 CD. I had the Sega 32X. It wasn't a bad system. It wasn't. It was a mess as far as wires and power supplies and cables all over the friggin' place. But it wasn't a bad system. It was bad timing, because why would you spend more money on that? I did. But why would you spend money on that when you had the Saturn coming out relatively within a few months? It didn't have a chance to hit its stride. And that was like the ColecoVision, the Game Crash, the Vectrex. Didn't get a chance to hit its real stride because the market fell out underneath it. And that happens quite a bit.
I can't say that the 32X was the best money I ever spent.
Well, how much did you spend on? I spent $5.
I can't even remember. I blocked it out. But I feel like the Atari Lynx, trying to think if there are other ones that I was just like,
well, the Lynx, I had RJ Michael on a couple of times. And Atari, unfortunately, and oh my God, I can't think of his name right now. Trammell, Jack Trammell, caused a lot of problems. The Lynx, when it was released, would have been $100, not $189. The game cartridges would have been cheaper, and they had hundreds of people lined up because they wanted to support that console. But when Epix kind of ran out of money, and Atari appropriated it, as soon as all these people knew that it was Atari, everyone backed out. The parts suppliers that gave them great prices changed the prices. Now it's $189. All the software developers walked away because they knew how Jack Trammell operated. So the Lynx literally came out 45 days after the Game Boy. Now, if you take a Game Boy, the original Game Boy, and 45 days later, you see this color, basically an SNES in a handheld that was ambidextrous and everything else. It was set to kill it. Unfortunately, and RJ Michael and everyone else kind of left the project because they didn't want to deal with Atari either. Unfortunately, that's what killed it. I mean, they also you could link 8. It was originally 16 people. You could put one game in, and it would download the game to all the other links. Atari changed that. You got to buy the cartridge for all of them, and you couldn't have 8. So unfortunately, it's one of those things where, again, not always the strongest hardware wins. And actually, I don't think at any time the most advanced hardware ever won that console generation. Usually it's just the one that's got the better software, and generally that's not the most powerful, usually.
Yeah, I think you're right. Dreamcast would have won if that was the case the time that came out, because I felt like it took ages for everyone to catch up to that.
It wasn't that. What killed it for the Dreamcast was Sega pissed off all the developers and retailers with the Saturn and 32X. They just pissed everyone. Okay. They pissed everyone off. The developers were like, "We're not going to support it." And the retail store is like, well, you screwed us over with this. They didn't carry many. That's unfortunately Sega. Sega learned. The thing is, Sega learned from its mistakes just a little too late. Atari didn't. Atari never learned. Atari always thought it was the king. It was the king, and always acted like the king at a time where Nintendo and Japan really ruled the roost. And that's what did Atari in, and that's what kind of did Sega in. And people don't even know Sega originally wasn't an American company. I don't know if you even knew that. Sega started out as an American company, and it became a Japanese company.
I think I saw a documentary on that. You know, it's funny. I was gonna ask you what your opinion was of the stuff that's going to be coming out. I think supposedly later this year with the Atari brand on it, because I've seen some stuff and some of it looks interesting, but I realize that we're coming up on an hour already.
We are. I just realized that myself. I'll say really quick. I am appreciative that Atari is not, again, it's not the original Atari, it's the new Atari, is trying to get back to its roots and focus on retro gaming, because that's, I think, really they should be. My issues are 2600 plus. Why in the world a force switch? If you're making a little advanced, little new 2600, it should have been the heavy sixer. So, you know, that cheesed me off. I bought the VCS for $80 because it was $80. How could I turn that down? It's a nice little console for $80. The 7800 plus is, again, pretty good. But again, it's the European version. It's not the US version of the console. So that cheeses me off. And how come there's still no 5200? I think there's a huge market for a console that had great games and had rotten controllers. Make a 5200 mini with advanced working controllers. They would sell like hotcakes. Atari, I've written to him. He hasn't answered me. I've written to him. Hasn't answered me. But I want to say real quick, so we are top of the hour and Super Gamer Dudes is kicking off. Please, if you have not already, I think some people did go in and already do it. Please go over Retro Future Guy. I have a link down in here, and subscribe to his channel. Actually, Scott, you got 2 more. I can say right now, but we want to get more. He needs more subscribers to his channel. Please go over there and subscribe to his channel. And I appreciate you really coming on today and talking about these things. I still think those things are gorgeous. It's a shame you got to take one apart, because that's my other problem. I'm sure you guys, every demo unit, every single time I'm prototyping something, I have them, which is why I got no space. I refuse to get rid of my prototypes. Yeah. I'm thinking one day when I'm dead, it'll be in a museum somewhere. That's kind of like my hope. But Kevin, doing it again here. I appreciate you coming on the show. You're a great guy, great personality, and great person to talk to. I want to have you on again. I think we have a lot more stuff we could probably talk about here. And
sure, I'd love to. And
I want to tell everyone one more time that this is Memorial Day weekend here in the U.S. anyway. And if you see a vet, thank a vet. So many of these people have, I feel horrible that I still see like vets living on the street or, being treated poorly. It kills me. Please remember, these people went through stuff none of us could possibly comprehend. For the freedoms, you guys sitting here tonight, enjoying the show, spending time with your family, going to the movies, going out to dinner. These guys fought for the freedoms of this country, which has been helping keep the world free. Please thank a vet. Please thank anyone in your family who served. And with that, I'm going to let you give the last word tonight.
Glenn, thank you. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And thanks everybody in the comments. I really appreciate it. I see that somebody posted the link to the channel. Planning on doing a bunch of cool stuff there. But if you've got any questions, comments, concerns, just want to chat about anything, hit me up in that channel about any of this stuff. I'm always down to help people out. And I think, Glenn, you've done so much to push the the retro gaming and home arcade industry forward with all the stuff that you've done with Thunderstick Studio. And I really admire all that you've done. And I just wanted to also find a way to give back and help people be informed and entertained and, make cool things. So just in a different way.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Kevin. And listen, I hope you have a great weekend with the wife. I didn't even ask you, married?
Girlfriend.
All right.
Of 12 years. So yeah, basically.
Well, congrats to her. Have a great weekend with her. Spend some time with the family. Always spend time with family and friends. Remember, tomorrow is never promised. You think it is, but it isn't. Always make sure you tell family and friends you love them. But in between those times, get some Legos, go over to Retro Future Guy, and build yourself something cool. In the meantime, have a great weekend, everyone, and game on.
Gluing on cartridges, hit reset. 8-bit dreams, can't lose that bet. Floppy disks and arcade lights. Pac-Man, Frogger, we're playing all night. Simpsons in the background, neon in the air. 80s vibes, man, we didn't care. VHS tapes, staying up too late. Saturday cartoons, can't wait to escape. Dial-ups humming, we're hacking the code. Back when everything was in upload mode. Atari, Commodore, pixels on screen. Living in the future was more than a dream. It's time to kick it old school, turn the clocks back, break the rules. When the pixels pop and the world was cool, we're taking it back, that's how we roll and roll. It's time to kick it old school, where the beats are fresh, the tech was gold. From arcades, TV shows that ruled. You know we're kicking it old school. MTV playing our favorite jams. Moonwalking with MJ, Neon Slam. Ghostbusters, here we're ready to go. Chasing slasher scenes, fears in tow. Back to the future, hop in the DeLorean. Knight Rider cruising, man, there's no ignoring them. Battlestar Galactica, what a ride. Looney Tunes, antics, pure joy inside. Blockbusters ruled, we lined up for days. Video games booted up in the pixelated maze. Movie marathons and popcorn nights, we ruled the screen, living in the lights. It's time to kick it old school, turn the clocks back, break the rules. When the pixels pop and the world was cool, we're taking it back, that's how we roll, we roll. It's time to kick it old school, where the beats are fresh, the tech was gold. From arcades to TV shows that ruled, you know we're kicking it old school. Grab your joystick, the game's about to start. A high-score world, now that's an art. We're cruising on hoverboards, living our dream. Old school forever, we're igniting the scene. It's time to kick it old school, turn the clocks back, break the rules. When the pixels pop and the world was cool, we're taking it back,